Welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are...
Now we're live on YouTube. This is the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. Happy Monday to you. Matt Iwanyk, Lieutenant Eric with you. And joining us, it's Paul Sir back on the show. Paul, thanks for coming in. We're having a wonderful discussion already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we jumped onto the Hangouts, before we get going, how's everyone's bracket? Do you fill out a bracket?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. I love the embarrassment that goes along with it.
Get out of here. You got. How many are you in, though? Do you just do one for your own personal?
Yeah, I do too.
Big money buy-in or?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I never have done it. We did an office pool when I was at ABA. I won it one out of like 16 years. So there's no magic to it. I love the opportunity to be able to pick the upsets. But you just never know what's coming. That's what makes the event so great.
You do own the upsets though when they happen. Hey,
God.
you got it. You're the one. You knew it. I mean,
100%. Like I saw that coming.
Yeah.
How did no one else get this? Like I'm just so brilliant.
I know.
Look how good I am.
I know. I love the stats when they get into how many brackets are 100% accurate.
Yeah.
Which is just an incredible small number.
I think going into Saturday, so through the first 2 days, NCAA officially, now there's all sorts of different ones, but I think through them, there's only one perfect bracket.
Is that right?
And Bijan
following
Robinson,
Saturday, he had the opening round or whatever. Didn't
first
he?
two, Bijan Robertson of the Falcons. He was completely undefeated through 2 days.
My goodness.
Which picking those
completely
opening
nailed it.
round is almost like, I mean, you could pick a Final Four. You can look at heavyweight. That's kind of, but to pick those opening rounds,
You never expect that.
not at all.
I will throw this out there. I'm stealing this from Eric because he mentioned it late last week. Next year, my bracket, I'm going to do two. But one of them, I'm going to try to go 0-32. I'm going to try to get every single one wrrong. And I think there's a skill in that even. I'm going to get them all wrong. Because generally I'm trying to get the Final Four. That's what in my mind I'm focused on. But I'm going to focus on losing everything and having a perfect, imperfect bracket.
My wife tried, I think, this year. She tried. She came close.
She?
Yeah. Picking. I mean, the first round was littered in upsets. Like it was just all upsets. So.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I got 21 following the first round of both days, and I have 12 teams into the Sweet 16. So that's decent.
12 out of 16. That's impressive.
Auburn,
actually.
BYU, Baylor, and Kansas are the only ones that I don't have in. So I got NC State. People were laughing in my face about that. I got Arizona
They won
winning
the
it.
ACC tournament.
Yeah, but that's
They
still
were
an
coming in
impressive
hot.
pick.
No, but there's no reason to be laughing at them, right?
No.
Well, no, but people laughing for different reasons.
Well, those people shouldn't have been
laughing.
laughing. That's what I'm saying.
Who's laughing now?
You should have looked at them on ACC champs. ACC champs.
That's
champs.
right.
I've been singing
Took
it,
down
yeah.
Duke and UNC on the way
I'm
to
pretty. Look, if this is my high, this is good. I'll put this on the fridge for a couple weeks after the tournament.
I think you
just
should.
have it sitting there.
That's a trophy.
Why not? It's
I'm in
something.
the different spot.
What's happened?
I have 9 out of my 16 Sweet 16. I tried getting Oregon to the Sweet 16. I tried getting Colorado to the Sweet 16. I picked both of them. They both came close to knocking off Marquette and Creighton, respectively. They were right there, so that one hurt me. But my entire Final Four is intact. So there's this give and take right now where it's
100%.
I've gotten a lot of the other things wrong, but if UNC, UConn, Duke, and Tennessee, those are my Final Four, could pull it off this upcoming weekend, I'm laughing.
The cream will rise to the top. Hopefully for you.
I focused on my Final Four. They're still there, but everything else, it's not good.
The cream does tend to curdle. So I think
are you talking about Purdue? Or is
You know what? Good start for Purdue. The mission that they claimed that they were on looks like they really were much better prepared, certainly, than last year when they were upset. But Purdue, so far, I'm thinking, you know what? They do have a shot. I have them in the Final Four, but remains to be seen.
What's your Final Four?
I've got, I've got UConn, who I think is going to win it. UNC, Purdue. Oh, no, who's the fourth?
So there'd be potentially Houston, Duke,
NC State.
I picked Houston over Duke.
Yeah.
And
shots fired at Duke.
I just didn't believe in Duke. They were much better yesterday than I thought they'd be.
But I said I'm a Duke guy. And I'm worried about Duke coming into this because they didn't have a good record against top teams this year. They didn't play a lot even. Lost both games to UNC. I do look at yesterday. I'm very happy with how good it was, but it was also James Madison. That's the balance I'm having with that one, where it's like
don't be overly impressed.
They dominated. Vermont, they had a little bit of a scare. I was hoping maybe that was just like bad shooting. It wasn't there. They've got that out of their system. Happy what I saw from James Madison, but Houston's going to be a good challenge.
It is. I mean, Houston's really good. They're well coached. They're experienced. So I just think that's going to carry them through myself.
It's just a funny tournament, and I don't think. And I'm glad you're in the room today because I guess you could look at soccer tournaments during the summer. You got to get out of the group. There's a lot of things to get to where you need to go. It's called March Madness for a reason, and I just wonder, you play this regular season where it's, and people crunch the numbers, the records, and you assume, well, this team's done really good. Once you get in this tournament, though, like you're kind of going off fumes and vibes, and if you go in feeling good, if you're a top team that's maybe lost a couple games during the regular season, but you go in and maybe something happens around the locker room, like it's very fine mark. Like, they're not pros; these are just university kids, and it's all riding on just kind of sometimes hype within the tournament. Like, how much can you grow getting into this? You're maybe a lesser seed. You get in the tournament, you pick up one big win. Who's to say? Maybe you build off of that and just kind of go off the hype instead of just maybe the pure talent that you have.
That's it. I think the most important point of March Madness, I can't think of any other sporting event that has a more impactful and meaningful brand. I mean, when you look at March Madness and you put 68 teams out there, and you have, and again, one shining moment, I mean, that is such a perfect, poignant description of what this is all about. So a team can come in one moment, and it all comes together one night, and you can beat Kentucky.
Why not? Yeah.
Like you can beat the number one ranked Virginia team. You can beat number one ranked Purdue. But then reality usually sets in. And the next time, James Madison, who beat Wisconsin, who was they were really up and down. Wisconsin has what I call the Bennett hangover. Dick Bennett coached them for years and years. And once they got to the Final Four, like 25 years ago, but they were either really good or really bad. They're never a good offensive team. And in any given night, they can be really good and beat Purdue 76-75 in the conference tournament, and then turn around and absolutely lay an egg against a James Madison.
Yeah.
And then James Madison comes plummeting down to earth about how good they really are against
What
Duke.
is it a credit again to like JMU Magic, or is it, as you mentioned, a team in Wisconsin where you're kind of
It's both.
up and exactly like UConn? I think UConn, you mentioned, and they are the team.
Yeah,
arguably,
they've been a great team all year.
But a team that's
beaten
going to
good teams all year.
Well, they're going to beat you, and they're not going to lose to maybe or have a night off. Like it's only these teams also have to have nights off for a James Madison to do something, and UConn's kind of got both sides of that package. They're going to beat you, but they won't lose those games where you might have a night off. Or
they don't take nights off. I think Hurley's the best coach in amongst a lot of really good coaches in the NCAA, but he's just got that it factor of combination of technical, recruiting, and execution, and the way he motivates.
Yeah,
I just think he's really special, and that comes through in his team, and his team's really good.
When I like how much motivation is required in this tournament, and football I think goes the same too. There's an X's and O's to it, but just motivation and being able to just come into this thing and get on a little magic dust and see what happens, because other teams, we before the tournament we went into so many numbers.
The Ken Pump,
and people do so much analysis heading into it, but it's kids and it's a tournament, and you say a moment here, a moment there can dictate a season.
Analytics, the curse, blessing and curse, more curse than blessing of analytics. But a game that really stood out to me that embodied March Madness was Grand Canyon against Alabama yesterday. It was an awful game in terms of execution. Grand Canyon was like a runaway freight train. All effort, no execution. But the will, the desire, the absolute energy that's out there. When you see that, just every play, all 10 players out there are doing everything they can to make an impact, good or bad. And Grand Canyon kind of embodied that. and they have a kid, Grant Foster, that started at a JUCO in Iowa, transferred to Kansas, transferred to, I'm sorry about the third university, but in the first game was taken to the hospital because he had heart problems, and he had to sit out 2 years because of 2 heart surgeries. And now he's at Grand Canyon State, and they win a game, and now he's out there. And again, he was probably the prime example of someone who was out there absolutely killing himself, most of the time to a fault, but just doing everything he could to win. I love that about March Madness, that the purity of the effort and the energy is something to watch and behold.
I don't want to get Dusty completely wrong on this, most misquote him, but on Thursday, me and Joaquin Gage were just watching March Madness, and Dusty, after the shows, came out to look at it. He's like, there's just something about March Madness with him, like that, there's more design plays. Is that would you, like, compared to the NBA, like, they're following what their coaches are doing, and it's plays.
Yeah.
And there's just something that just sucks you in with this strategy that they have coming down the court.
To me, there's a metaphor here that I've got to come to, but I don't have it right formulated yet. But there is something, that is what's so special about March Madness. The whole world has gone to FIBA rules, 24-second clock, the timeouts, everything about it. We want to put the ball in the players' hands. The NCAA has fought that. They don't have the wide key. They still have the narrow key. They have a 30-second clock, not 24-second. Mm-hmm. But what I love, you get 68 teams out there. You're going to get a lot of teams that run very unique stuff that suits their talent. And that's what I love. As a basketball guy with, my long life of watching the game, the fact that the NCAA, even though they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater in all these other areas, like with NIL and the transfer portal and all of that, the fact that they maintained their own set of rules and stuck to it, for me, is great. And a lot of times, it does impede some development because players become quite rigid if you're running just sets, for instance, like plays, like Dusty's pointing out. You've got actions and plays that you're running, but that's the magic of it. And on a given night, that's what it may take because you haven't seen that goofy zone that somebody runs, like that Oakland ran. Like they ran this really bizarre zone. Syracuse used to drive everybody nuts in their heyday under Boeheim, because they always played a 2-3 zone with all these different little layers in it. And all year you're playing against man-to-man defenses. And all of a sudden you got to adapt to this zone, which completely throws you out of your rhythm of what you're trying to do. Because in sport, whether it's hockey, football, or basketball, so much success comes down imposing your will on the other team. And your will comes from what your strengths are. And if you take their strengths away, now what do you do?
It's just funny, you have such a long, good season. Maybe some school does. You come up against one of these teams.
Yes.
First blush, and you're like, what the hell? Like, and they stifle you and stymie you. And you throw the numbers out the window. Your regular season.
But then you see what they're made of. Can they be a school that can come through and figure it out, or is that going to be their downfall?
That's the win.
It's like watching like Kentucky losing to Oakland. It's like, how are you going to respond to this? How are you responding to this adversity that you really haven't, like this team you're supposed to roll over, and now you've got the big adversity coming at your way. How are you going to deal with this?
That's an interesting case study, though, if I could put it that way. Kentucky, Calipari, the way he recruits, who he recruits, and the effort that the team put forward on that day. That, again, you're watching on TV, so it's one-dimensional. But it just didn't look like it. Like the Kentucky guys looked like they just weren't prepared and didn't care enough to prepare.
Well, Calipari basically threw him under the bus a little bit after the game. He said the players weren't into it. Like, he called out the players, and I was like, dude, you're the coach. You're the high-paid coach.
The highest paid coach. Yeah, and I can see him saying that, but I can't see him not. He's just got to accept responsibility for not having his team motivated and ready to go. Now, though, that kind of ties into the deeper question of who is he? He's recruiting guys to go to the NBA. Are these guys that want to win a national championship, or are they taking that first step to get to the NBA? And do they really care? They're generally getting a lot of NIL money. So they're getting paid well to play for Kentucky, but they're waiting for the bigger payday that's just around the corner. So that's the thing that I find so interesting, and it was almost poetic justice, because to me it's like that's what can happen when you create this kind of world that the NCAA now is.
Do you want to win the tournament or not? Where are your priorities and where's your focus? And clearly, I mean, if it's if you're going to Kentucky and it's easy to just kind of look past the madness or whatever, and in the back of your mind, not to say that they're in the tournament, they're not caring, but there's that subconscious plant that's there.
Not even, it's also there might be that player sitting there going, I don't want to get hurt.
Oh, that too. All those things.
All of a sudden, that money that's going to come next year once you go to the NBA, that's going to get hurt more. So
terms
I want,
too,
you want me to go a little extra hard? You want to know something? It's close to
Do you
draft.
care about the Chick-fil-A bowl?
That far.
If you like
football, where they're sitting out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the outcome of all of this. Is now it's a business decision, and it in some respects you can understand it now that you've opened that door.
Yes,
but to the kid from Oakland, this isn't a business decision.
Exactly.
You're not going to the NBA. This is your moment, your one shining moment, and that when they get a chance to get on that stage and then come through with an upset of that magnitude, that's something really special.
And they know it's an upset. They know they're likely going to go in and lose. And that's the scariest opponent you could have, the one that has no fear. The one that goes out there and goes,
nothing to lose.
Whatever. If we lose, that's what we're supposed to do.
I think that's.
But if we take you down, boom.
Yeah.
We're like legacy for my life. The greatest accomplishment in my sporting career is going to have happened. Awesome.
That's why I lick my chops at the beginning of the tournament. I look for the most obscure name. Saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, for somebody not knowing too much in depth, you look at a name that you haven't seen and you're like, yeah, those are the guys that'll probably, because again, they're going there with absolutely nothing to lose and everything to kind of prove. And if you're going, as you said, up against a program that maybe have their sights subconsciously set on other things, that's your formula for an upset.
That's where, again, I'll go back to Hurley at UConn. He appears to me to have the perfect balance of preparing guys for the next level, but getting them to care about this level.
Yeah.
And buying into the program, the tradition, what this means, the significance that this will have in their life if they're successful. And though he's one of those beacons that gives me hope for the future of NCAA basketball, because and for people who don't know about the transfer portal, it's much easier now to move from one school to the other.
Players have a lot more control over their destiny.
They do. And now you can go to a university and get name, image, and likeness money, and it can be significant. Mm-hmm. A lot of high six figures in some cases, low six figures in others, but even at smaller schools, you're getting $10, $20, $40, $60,000 over and above your scholarship. That's different now. That's a different environment. And so your ability to move around, shop yourself around for more money, a program that suits you more, it's created quite the landscape.
I think striking that balance as UConn, as you said, I mean, if I'm a NBA team looking for the next pros, you want them to go through a March Madness ringer. This is real. This is almost a dress rehearsal for the NBA. I don't want a guy that's playing for case of this example, Kentucky, and thinking about playing in the NBA when he's not. I want to see how you survive in a tournament. Now, this is a test of your mettle to make it to the pros. So by kind of
the pros ain't easy.
The pros ain't easy.
See what it's like
so
to go
rise
through
to
a
the
little bit of a
challenge here.
gauntlet.
Exactly. And if you're not going to rise to this challenge, how confident can I be that you're going to rise to the challenge in the next level?
You're an old soul, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
Because that's the way it should be.
Yeah,
but it's not the way it is.
Oh no, and I agree.
No, I'm not. No, hear me
understand
out.
that,
What you're saying is right. It's a test of character. It's a test of desire. It's what GMs should be evaluating about kids, but they're not.
No.
In the NBA, they're going, I want that kid on Kentucky who meets all these metrics, and we've had our eyes on him. And he has this huge upside.
Yeah,
and then that other kid who works his tail off, but is 6'7", doesn't quite have his athleticism. You're going to look at it and go, no, Zach Edey, he's going to be player of the year 2 years in a row, 7'4", great career, Canadian, great career. Now they're saying, you know what, he might go in the second round. It's just the NBA is so different now. Their metrics are so different. And once in a while, you get that surprise, that pleasant surprise of that kid who did exactly like you described and sticks to it and maybe plays overseas for a couple of years and then finds a way to catch on with the team and then asserts himself. inserts himself into the NBA as a good player. But most of the time, GMs are measuring things completely differently.
And it's kind of, I mean, we're talking Zach Hyman earlier today. He hit the 50 goals, and that's that same time. We looked at the path, college, and I mean, he's not.
But like,
he's not a guy you would identify and say,
exactly.
"Oh yeah, here we go."
Two goals one year or something. I forgot in like the Ontario Junior Hockey League or
just,
something like
you
that
know.
in his season, and now he's a 50 goal
Nothing to
scorer in
write
the
home about.
National Hockey League.
Yeah.
How does that happen, though?
Well, how does that? I mean, but it happens once, and you say it's like we all go, "Wow, what a great!" And you can make a movie about it and everything. But think of how many others that didn't.
They've got
same
missed.
qualities, same type of thing, but just slip through the cracks. Because again, you're looking at other things when it comes to players and metrics and whatever. But I think there's so many of those stories, and it happens once, and we're like, oh wow, this is such a great thing. Whereas no, it could be more of a common thing, but I guess it wouldn't be such a story then. But
it's a fluke. It's one of those one-off situations.
How it's designed, yeah. You're not.
Yeah, you don't ever anticipate that kind of success in any sport. They just happen for any number of reasons, like the team they're on, the opportunity, the coach they're playing for.
Yeah.
Timing's everything.
Yeah.
Is Steve Nash in the Hall of Fame if he stays in Dallas? I don't know. He might be. He might not be. Like he was doing well in Dallas, but he flourished under the Phoenix system. The 7 seconds or less system.
They should have won.
It was the perfect. It was perfect situation.
Having a guy like McDavid passing you the puck is a great situation
That's
to
a
be
great
in. I mean,
situation.
it's not.
Yep.
Arguably, you maybe don't get that otherwhere, but I mean, it's. I don't know. We sit back and we're like, wow, but I just find like it. And this is in life too, that it does happen. It's just never picked up on, or. And again, as you say, I know. Shouldn't be right, but that's just how it is.
It's how it is.
It's how it is.
That's what they look at.
Yeah.
It's what they think. And what's also interesting is, and this is just pure armchair quarterbacking, but you watch the NBA. If one team has a success with one particular type of player, like a high school kid comes out, Kevin Garnett comes out, and he's successful right out of high school. All of a sudden, all these high school kids are getting drafted, and most of them never have NBA careers, much less successful NBA careers. They bring over a European player. He plays really well. Let's go.
You find a little piece of gold, and all of a sudden it's a mine that you have to
Copycat leagues.
Yeah.
All these sports.
Yep.
They just want to do what the best are doing. And so, well, if you got one, I'll get one.
100%.
We see, actually, it happens in soccer a little bit, and we'll get to soccer a little bit later, but Canada all of a sudden is developing talent, and now everyone's looking to Canada, saying what other talent is in Canada, what's in Canada, because Alphonso Davies happened. Yes. What other talent is here? And what have we missed type thing, but everyone flocks. Now, there are some players that have been missed, but now they'll be found, but for the most part, you're not going to find another Alphonso Davies with a snap of the finger in Canada.
But it's a perfect example, and I would go back to Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Until Steve Nash, Canadians being recruited en masse to the NCAA and the pathway into the NBA wasn't there. But Steve Nash happens, and now people start looking north. But
he didn't turn players good either. And I get what you're saying too. Not that's just how it is too. There was good Canadian basketball players. I'm sure that maybe
100%.
didn't get the look due to the fact that Nash didn't get the spotlight. And as you said with Canada,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it right, but that's
Yeah, Canadians are in basketball. The reason Canadians weren't recruited heavily down in the U.S. for a long time was the stereotype was Canadians are soft. It wasn't true, but that's what the stereotype was. Now you can't get enough Canadians into Division I programs. Like there's over 200 men and 200 women playing Division I basketball from Canada now. It's like
on our national programs too.
Oh, yeah.
But that wasn't the case before Nash, was it? Like, I mean, how did that? Like, it's kind of chicken egg here. Like, people, you're growing up, you see a guy like Nash, you see the attention he gets, and as a kid, you're more inclined, I guess, to any star, I guess, breeds more future stars. Everybody wants to, they see them playing. I want to be like that. But like, did it need to have a Nash? I know it shines the spotlight, but there were good players again that were around here. So why is like the national team now? I mean, we're talking, they're anything far from soft. I mean, nobody
says that anymore.
So how does that thinking change? Then it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a while. But how do we? Like, what was just because of Steve Nash? Now people think
Raptors and Grizzlies was a big one too.
That was huge. Yeah,
Vince Carter, Raptors, Grizzlies, the NBA being here. And just then the reality of Canadian kids getting the opportunity to compete in the NCAA.
Yeah.
And then some into the NBA, to the point now where it's no longer a negative, it's a positive. So now you've got a Jamal Murray, you've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, arguably right in
Lights
the thick
out.
of it,
Yeah,
for the MVP race this year.
Wild.
Just
The
an
Thunder,
incredible
leading the
player.
Thunder. Yeah, it's
Incredible. But you're right. It wasn't reality. But I would also say, once the portal opportunities started to come available to Canadian players, they started to make the most of it. That then trickles down to the other Canadian players, because it's a switch you have to flip. I can do this. I can compete with them. We are as good as them. And that whole attitude, that swagger is very present in the Canadian national team, certainly, in the fact that Canada has the second most players in the NBA. Far different than
wild.
the US, but
Because
it's
is this
crazy.
like is this? Would you see this in like soccer too? We kind of like is this like a golden generation of Canadian basketball players of a sort? And I know you can't kind of mark it from this time to that time but I'm just like you've never seen this many stars with Canadian passports in the league, have you? Like this is
It's a special time, but it's something that should be sustainable.
and it
That's what
should
you
have been
hope.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what you
like
hope.
Like this is a golden generation, but in
it's the
soccer,
start of some- yeah.
golden generations go.
they have a
Right,
time.
they end.
There's an expiration date and a start.
We're in
But
a
for
golden
this is-
generation of Canada's soccer, men's wise.
Yeah.
Like the women's had, they've maintained it.
Yeah. Okay.
They've maintained it.
Pass the torch.
Men's soccer, we're seeing the timeline of this past World Cup, 2026 and 2030.
Yeah.
That's kind of it for this group.
Yeah.
The question is, can we maintain it after, or is this our golden generation like Chile, where Hernan Salas, they're done.
They're done,
Their golden
yeah,
generation is over. For basketball, Canada basketball, it would be, this is a golden generation,
to start off
but you're hoping
yeah.
that we could stop saying golden generation because it's just
Exactly,
continual.
yeah.
We just continually keep developing these players, and all these, when Jamal Murray's done in his career and Gilgeous-Alexander's done, the
There's gonna
next
be
two
another-
players
yeah,
are
yeah.
there to replace them, and it's just a continual cycle. And when Kia Nurse is done, there's that next person that comes in. That's what we're hoping we can see.
I think it's a topic to be watched, because you're right. You hope the pipeline.
There's no guarantee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The pipeline is filled. You hope you're filling the pipeline with new talent. I'll refer to another sport, tennis. 2 years ago, the sun was shining on Canadian tennis, both men's and women's. Injuries to Milos and to Andreescu. Jeannie had severe injury, never was able to regain her form. All the hopes around Felix and around Shapovalov, and Fernandez finishes second in the U.S. Open. Now, all of a sudden, they're floundering, and the young Canadians, right now, there's no heir apparent. There's no new star that's just so obvious on the horizon. So you look at that, and I think that's one thing I hope that Canadian coaches, talent, remember, you got to always be proving yourself. And that I oftentimes think that people can get too soft and too comfortable. That's why this Olympics is so important to basketball in Canada, is the men are finally back. Like, this is the first year they've been in the Olympics in a long time, but they're going in loaded. Mike Krzyzewski said 12 years ago, Canada is going to be on the podium either in 2020 or 2024. They're that good. This is our time. So this is important for the men and the women, and to really establish themselves and establish a culture, but I think also establish that the kids coming up have to get better and better, and not. Sometimes I think there's a tendency to be too easy on ourselves in Canada, and I felt that with tennis. I'm a big tennis fan.
Dave Jamieson is smiling like hell right now.
Yeah.
But I think when we arrive in these sports as Canadians, we just, as you say, the bathwater's nice temperature, and we like to just relax a bit. Like
you let up. Yeah.
The success organizations, you got to be, the eye is always on tomorrow.
It has to be.
Isn't it different in hockey? Though, has it maintained its high level of developing NHL stars?
Not goalies.
Okay.
Goalies, we haven't done that at all.
Yep.
When it comes to other positions, I think it has, but I also think, well, look, there's other issues with Hockey Canada.
Yep.
And I'll take even away the sexual abuse cover up. I'll take that even away and just go development league.
Yeah.
that stuff, there's with the BCHL and the AJHL and all this, there's a lot of issues that are coming from that. But we're still producing high-end hockey players, I think, forward and defense, for sure. At some point, though, when we're like, Canada sports is in a golden generation. I don't think there would have been a time in history we could say that Canada's good in a lot of different sports.
Lots of football players as well. I mean,
football players, we're seeing soccer, we're talking basketball, you've mentioned
track.
tennis,
Yeah.
track, the women in the pool swimming-wise, decathlon for track, golf. We have a lot of golfers, Brooke Henderson, Nick Taylor. That's changed. Like, I would say we're in probably one of the best generations ever for well-balanced diet of sports.
On the marquee with every type of sport.
All
There's
sorts of different things. We're
point.
in a lot of things. Now, can we maintain that? But also to build that, because we're a country of only 40 million people, some of those athletes probably didn't go to hockey. We've probably taken a little bit of that pipeline and said, we're still going to develop the Connor McDavids and the Connor Bedards, but we're going to take a couple of players. You don't have to play hockey. Come play tennis. Come play golf. Come play basketball. And we've maybe taken some... Look, math says you're only going to produce so many high-end athletes when you have 40 million people, right? Like, we're not going to produce 40 million high-end athletes.
So do you go where 99 out of 100 are going?
We've now balanced it maybe a little bit, I'm hoping. And we could keep that interest there across the board, and this could continue.
I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Serbia. 10 million people.
Yeah.
Phenomenal in basketball, phenomenal in tennis, phenomenal in cycling, and they're very competitive in other sports. And what I would say the reason is because of that ferocious national pride that they have. And they're, I'll use another example. I'm going to use an Alberta example. Raymond, Alberta. Little Raymond, Alberta. One stoplight town, 2,000 people. They have fewer students or fewer people in their town than most of the schools that they play against in 4A.
Will Fraser's talked about them. And if you look at like an analytic of population to like athlete pumped out, it's
off the charts.
Right.
It's off the charts. So this year, the girls, they have a generational player in Delaney Gibb, who has a younger sister who's going to be probably even better than Delaney, or could be. But they kick the heck out of everybody. Teams and high school teams that get a lot of special athletes transferring into their schools. The ferocity of the pride in that community, it really is Hoosiers personified in modern day life. When we moved to Canada in the late 80s, and when my oldest son Steve started playing, so this is the late 90s, we went down to Raymond to this fantastic Christmas tournament called the Sugar Bowl. And it's in a church gym, and it's just packed with LDS folks, and it is just rabid and insane. And you walk in and you go, this is different. And I remember, I had the privilege of being an assistant coach with the great Dave Youngs, who's now retiring from Ross Shep. But we walked in and we said, you know what? These guys want you, and they're not afraid of you. They don't care that you're bigger, stronger. They don't care at all. They've won before, and they're convinced they're going to win again. Now, we never lost to them, but most teams do. And over the years, they've won 4A football, 4A women's girls rugby. I mean, not just basketball.
Ralph Brothers from CFL.
Oh yeah, the Ralph Brothers for sure. They've produced a lot of Division I athletes. Jimmy, can't believe I can't remember his last name. Great family out of McGrath. Balderson. Jimmy Balderson played at BYU. I mean, they've produced a lot of athletes, but there's that quality. And sometimes I feel like in Canada, we miss that. We focus on other things, and I feel that way very much in tennis, that we said, our guys are only 22, 23. It doesn't matter that they're not winning. They're close. They're going to get there. And now all of a sudden, you can see them out there kind of pressing, and they're getting beaten by other players who are hungrier, who appear to be hungrier than them. And there's other things like injuries and all of those things. But anyway, sorry for that rant. But I think this is a crossroads time for Canada, for basketball in Canada, I believe.
That's fair.
I think all the other sports too, outside of hockey, you could argue maybe at a lesser. I mean, because you slap the maple leaf on a hockey jersey, U7, whatever it is, people are,
You expect to win the gold
and a bit of a
every
more
game.
attention and ferocity involved.
We will compete every time.
Whereas again, if it's a tennis national or even, I mean, on the weekend, you and I were out at Hudson's, Bourbon Street, great hosts, watching Canada, Trinidad and Tobago, but important game, but people watch it. Yeah, it's more of a casual viewing. What happened? What ended the thing? But it was a big match. And again, over the years, tennis and hockey, the FIBAs too. I mean, when Canada's on the court, it's glanced at. It's go Canada, but it's not with the same get up and go as you would. And again, not the top hockey tournaments, but even the lesser thans. Look at the World Juniors and the amount of pomp and pageantry that's around. Now again, that's more of a TSN thing now, but it's a junior tournament, and that's fine. And cheer for Canada. I'm not going to tell people how to or what to do, but if you could get up to that same level again, as you say, with basketball or tennis, whatever, on their pro stages as opposed to hockey on a junior stage.
Yeah.
How many people
There's more than enough to share and move around there.
How many people follow Canada men's basketball qualification for the Olympics?
Well, that's
like the
insane.
World Juniors is every year, and it's great, and people love it. I'm not trying to say don't watch it.
No.
But qualification for this tournament, we haven't qualified since the early 2000s.
Yes.
Like it was
with a hell of a team.
We need to get there.
Yeah,
We're going up, and there's a bronze medal game against the USA, which we won.
I'm guilty of it too. I'll put my hands up.
But we should get up for these a little bit, and
but I think
the national pride needs to be there for other things.
Well, when I moved here, our family moved here in 1987, and I was driving around on an August night listening to. I started flipping around the dial, and I heard Brian Hall, and then I heard John Short. And I'm thinking, what in the world are people talking about the 10th round draft pick in the NHL and what he's doing now? And it's August 16th and it's 60 degrees out. I knew then that this was a whole different deal than I was used to. What I'm impressed with is how it's been maintained, that passion and interest has been maintained. I'm surprised at times at how hard it's been to bring the other sports up, i.e. with my passion for basketball, but we're getting there. Mm-hmm. And the fact that more and more people, more and more kids are playing, more and more families are coming around to being interested in other sports, not just basketball, in other sports. So but that was my first lesson in what I was, the community I was in, and that was.
But when that type of story is brought up, people people giggle. Like usually the reaction is like, yeah, and then there's like a point of pride where it's like, yeah, that's how much we. But at the same time, like it's yes, and you can have those things because you go down. Look. Go down to the SEC country. They're talking about who's starting the O-line, middle of offseason. However, they also talk about other things and give oxygen to other things. Whereas we giggle and we laugh, and yes, it's hardcore here. But it also is a bit of a cautionary sign to be like, why are we talking about this now? When there are other things you could talk about them all, but just not giving it such a...
On that, like, I remember JMO and I having this conversation a few times at the old place where I'm willing to have Canada hockey in general, Hockey Canada, come down a little bit and be competitive with everyone.
A balanced diet.
We're not just dominating everyone. If that means we're good in other sports. I want to be able to have the national pride for a bunch of different things. This summer with basketball, with women's soccer, we'll be there with I want us to be competitive. I want to hear our anthem played. And I'm okay if that means that potentially hockey might have to take a little bit of drop off and it's not just an easy victory. And there are some people out there, and hey, everyone can have their thoughts on this, but said, no, I want Canada to just roll every time in hockey. I don't care about the other sports. Like Lennox Lewis, he's Canadian. I know he won it was a UK, but heaviest man winning boxing world's heaviest, like the heavyweight title. That's a big deal. When Donovan Bailey ultimately then was the world's fastest man, like I want that to again, the world cares about that. And when Bianca Andreescu won tennis, that's a big deal. That was
a big deal.
Winning a singles major title in any of those four.
I'll never forget where I was. But it's one of those moments, right?
Yep. And the world saw that. And being like, she's ours.
Yes.
I love that.
Yep.
And I want more of that. I understand there's some people out there that say, I don't care about any of that. I want Canada to win the World Juniors. I want to win World Hockey Championships. I want to win Olympics. I want to win Women's World Hockey Championships, Women's Olympics. And that's it.
And I think
Let's roll.
They could still all do that if you just take a little less. It's not like I'm concerned if they'll be, hockey will be fine. It should be fine. You've done enough to this point to, I think, as you mentioned, with players coming down pipelines and everything. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Hockey's the thing. However,
I'm willing to have a competitive game against the U.S. as opposed to rolling them.
Yeah.
If that means we might be able to see Canada podium.
But when did
at
Hockey
the
Canada
Olympics.
have the inquest or whatever, like the internal audit, where like that was
The World Juniors? I think that would have been like the
Right?
90s World Juniors or something.
And when
like
we as a
late
nation
90s.
paused, we stopped, we said,
We hadn't won in a couple
no podium,
and
hey?
it was
Full finance. Taxes were raised. All the finance and every contention was going to fix the problem there. And I found that point so kind of funny.
parliamentary sessions and everything
There's
all
never a point where you
devoted to
should be
this.
totally worried, right? Like, I mean, it's
Staff meetings at works were only about World Juniors.
So you have a few years off. Eh?
But the U.S. did the exact same thing when they lost the gold medal in 2000.
Yes, they did.
Yep.
And they started the Dream Team movement, and they've been focused on it ever since. And now they feel threatened for good reason, and for real good reason, that this upcoming Olympics is not guaranteed that the U.S. And I even think even if they have to bring in LeBron and if they have to bring in Durant, those players. I don't know if that's good or not. Like, you've got aged out guys that are still great, but in the international game against young, really physical, very talented guys as well, that may or may not be your best
And
team.
perhaps, again, going back to our March Madness discussion, the going against younger, hungrier individuals, whereas a KD and a LeBron,
They've done it.
they've done it, and they'll go in and they'll sure want, and everybody, and I get that. Oh, they pay money. In the back of that mind, though, there's always like that subconscious, and I wish numbers and skill and everything, but if we could get, and I know players, the Wonderlic test, teams interview players, they ask them those stupid questions, peanut butter jelly, whatever. But if we could have more of a common, some sort of stats system where you like measured like emotion from players or something. I don't know how you do it. I don't know when we get there, if at all. But I think that'd be fascinating to see, like just kind of
I don't
gauging
think you can
hunger.
quantify that. I don't think you can.
Well, we'll get to a point where we discover a new sense in ourselves or something like that. But it's funny because you
The
can.
seventh sense.
Because how much does that hunger kind of eliminate just talent? Like, because you can.
It could be a great equalizer.
A hell of an
Skill has
equalizer.
to be there.
There
has to be
there.
some
Yeah, there has
skill,
to be some.
But there
what's
could be an
that
equalizer.
Golf, hey?
Skill, hunger, and passion, and then ability.
Yeah.
And it's like where they all kind of level off. That's what's going to make the difference. I'm going to go back to the example of Kentucky losing. Like, that's just a team that physically, if they impose their will, just wouldn't lose because they're just physically they're better. But because the skill and the coaching and that the other team was just physical enough to take just enough of their physical superiority away, then they didn't have the will to overwhelm them with their skill. That's what set them back, and that's why that team won. And I think that's where, when you're going back to the Serbian example, like they have a care factor, and they have a swagger, and they have an FU attitude that you see it all the time in basketball. In 3x3, I mean, they win it year after year after year, and they're really good technically, they're really good physically, but they just do not lose.
And I think the counterexample would maybe be Herdman's Team Canada in the end. How he took them, and you've said this too. He was a motivator.
Yes,
he did it twice. He did it with the
hunger,
women's
us
and the
against
men's.
the world. We're going to F Iceland or whatever, whatever. Croatia. But that only, there's a point
plateau where then the ability and the skill has to come in.
You have to answer that, and
but the motivate, like that's that first, the belief that you can win. Is,
because I think he had that team going in that direction,
Yeah.
but then all of a sudden you're like, okay, time to announce your skill or announce your tactics or whatever, and then you fall just a bit short. And
there comes a point where, like, the timeout happens and the coach has the board. You've got to be able to draw your X's and O's and your play.
Dutch master, if you will.
Where's the Dutch master? Where you draw that out. If you just sit there and try to motivate, at some point the players are going to be like, I've heard this. I need a play.
In a different era, there was a coach named Bill Musselman in the NBA. And he was brought in when a team was going sideways.
One of the specialists, eh?
A specialist. He would get in the locker room, he'd yell at everybody, he'd make them run wind sprints again, and he would break the cycle of entitlement and get them to be tougher, meaner, ornery. He didn't care whether the players really liked him so much, but he was going to fix that. But 2 years in, he was an acquired taste. He was replaced.
Yeah. You want him around your prospects and everything or whatever?
Bill wasn't the best salesman. So, but he would change the culture, but he wouldn't be able to change it into that next elite level. And that's one of those it factors. Jim Valvano, factor, where you just find a way to create magic.
Well, soccer, you see it all the time. There's a club that's you have 10 games left in the season. You're 2 points off the drop. You bring in Sam Allardyce.
That's exactly
all he does is coach 10 games. He'll get the best out of you, and he'll just get you enough to survive. And then it's on to my next. I'll take another 6 months off and get hired again when a team pulls the alarm bells and I need to go in. But that's your life. That's your job. That's your DNA.
That's your.
Sometimes and realizing that too, you have to kind of realize who you are and what you are, and then you can kind of excel at it. But I don't know. Then some guys are brought in to handle prospects or younger players, and you have no business being around.
Absolutely.
Get him the hell out of there.
That's right.
Paul Sir, Lieutenant Eric, Matt Iwanyk with you on the EST Hangout presented by White Claw, the hard seltzer that started the wave, made with refreshingly real flavors for their iconic taste. White Claw, the difference is clear. We're live on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, EdmontonSportsTalk.com, as well as on YouTube. Just after 10 o'clock, we'll get to the EST Flyaway keyword for the chance to win a trip to Vegas. Thanks to our partners, FlyYEG and the LVCVA. We will get back to March Madness in a bit, but okay, so the Olympics, we've got men's, women's basketball. There was a 3x3. You can only go with. Can you only I know in 2020, I think, or 2021, whatever we want to call that Olympics, you could only go one women's or men's in 3x3. Is that correct?
How did that work? It was a convoluted system. The way it worked was if your country's team competed in the last Olympics, there was some restriction about both teams qualifying.
That's what that was.
And so that wonderful team, with the women's team with the Plouffe sisters, but there was another factor to it. And the factor was this. You had to have a certain number of, in every sport, in every FIBA, in every international sport, there's points, for wins and what level, what tournaments you win at. Same applies in 3x3, but one of their markers and metrics was how many players in your country were playing and were in the FIBA ecosystem. And Canada did not have enough women playing basketball at the time to combine with the world-class results that the women's team were having to push them over the number of points they needed.
That's
what a simple system.
Simplistic.
Very easy to understand.
The consumer just digests it.
Well, people just go, oh, yeah, that's what I thought you should do.
Water cooler talk.
It was terrible.
Why hasn't that been done before?
Absolutely. And it hasn't been, and it hasn't been done since. So, but this year, both the men and the women, even though they've been the world champions, 3x3 teams for the last 2 years, still haven't qualified for the Olympics.
Okay.
So they have to qualify yet. So that's going to be coming up soon in May.
Okay.
They'll be playing in, I believe, Utsunomiya, Japan in early May. It might be the same weekend we have the WNBA here, but they will be they'll be competing for their spot in the Olympics. The Plouffe sisters, Michelle is the number 1 ranked player in the world. Catherine's number 3, I believe. But Michelle's in the last minute of the world champions had a knee injury, had off-season surgery. So she's still coming back.
Okay.
So we'll see whether she's ready or not for that. Now, they've got some other pretty good options. So we all feel very strongly and confident that the women are going to be going to Paris. The men also have a chance to qualify as well. They have one chance. So we'll see whether or not they are up to the task or not.
And now, because of the Olympics, it can happen earlier, but 3x3 is coming to Edmonton once again this summer.
Yes.
So is that going to be used as a tune-up for the Olympics for some of these teams, or
not? Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. We're going to be hosting the Hoop Fest 3x3 Festival, July 5th to the 7th in the Fan Park downtown. We will have the World Tour for men, so the best men's team in the world, and the Women's Series for women, best women's teams in the world. And that will be the last FIBA event before the Paris Olympics. So we are the last stop.
Nice.
Before. So we're really excited about the teams that we're going to have there. Can I do a little pitch here?
Go for it. This is the segue to that.
All right. We have just, I'm going to announce it here.
Whoa.
I haven't announced this yet publicly. So we have just confirmed with FIBA that we are also going to run another qualifying event for men and women. And what it will be is teams can compete in this event. It's called a Quest. And the winner of the men's division, the winner of the men's team will qualify for a challenger, probably in China. So the winner will get an all-expense paid trip to China and go compete against other teams trying to get into the FIBA 3x3 system. And the women's winner will go and compete in a women's series event that will be held in Saskatoon in August. So
nice.
We're giving another pathway. We're trying to.
Oh, that's what the event was announced in Saskatoon.
Yes.
I saw that they had a 3x3 coming to Saskatoon.
Yeah, they're doing a women's series in Saskatoon. They're trying to get back in to the 3x3 game. And so
I really love Quest.
Yeah.
I use that word when I go, like, if I by myself. I don't say this to my wife or anything, but going for a grocery, like I'm going on a quest.
You just like the word.
It's a great
like
word.
the
I
word.
think
It's
like
a great
I love
word.
it. It spruces things up. It gives it a little extra oomph. In my opinion, Quest. I love it.
Yeah. So this is your quest.
National
Get
quest.
team
We're
in
all on
there.
a quest.
Get
Canada's on
the
a quest.
team.
Yeah.
That's right. We're on a quest. And in fact, the Canada basketball 3x3 tournament championship that they've run the last 2 years, they're not running this year, is called the Canada Quest. 3x3 Canada Quest. So we have that, and then we also have our Hoop City event, which is the grassroots event. And last year we had 100 teams. This year we're hoping to have over 200 of local.
That's a bracket.
Yeah. So and it's ages 9 to 90, and we'll have 12 courts set up for the community event there. We'll have the big dome up where we'll be running the FIBA 3x3, and then we'll have a court set up for this Quest event for men and women. So
Love it.
How do people get it? Like the youth teams get into this?
just sign up. Go
Is it
on
sign-
the donorth.ca
Okay.
website, and you can sign up.
Okay, I'm gonna have to talk to Yukon Jack about this because his
Yes.
two kids play basketball.
yeah.
Yes, they do.
And I went to go watch them, and they're good players. The youngest, Jonesy, is talented.
Yeah.
And they would love that, I'm assuming.
They would have a ball.
I'll
Anybody
have
who
to tell
plays
you this.
3x3 outside has a ball. The kids last year, like in the heyday, the glory days over at West Edmonton Mall, I think at one point we had 800 teams playing 3x3, and then it kind of faded away. But our goal now, through the Hoop City efforts, and we really do have great support from the city of Edmonton and the province of Alberta, is to build a Spokane-like experience over the next few years. And Spokane has what's called Hoop Fest. It's, I think, 36 years old. At their peak, they had 6,400 teams.
That's a good
How
time
do
of
you?
basketball.
Wow.
Imagine having to keep stats of that
Well,
one.
what the heck? Yeah,
And
get your
it's-
buddy on the.
it is, and
Ken Palm. Where's the Ken Palm rankings?
My wife and I, in 2019, before COVID, Sandy and I went down to Spokane. We got there on Thursday, and we're downtown where part of it's held. It's held all over. You would never have known there was a tournament going to happen on Thursday morning. By Thursday evening, baskets started showing up in areas. Friday morning, everything is getting set up. Saturday morning, there's hundreds of thousands of people packed into the streets. They have a Nike store set up. It's the largest grossing sales Nike store in the world.
I could imagine that.
It's
Yeah.
just a mob scene. Sunday, the finals are played by 10 o'clock Sunday night. You never know an event happened. Everything's cleaned up, put
Thank
away.
God.
It's just a machine.
Why Spokane? Is there a significance to that area? You mentioned it's been going on for some time. Was there something that around Spokane? Is that any sort of? Because if it's happening there, why not here? Hey,
Well, it's 35 years of persistent growth and attention to detail.
Okay.
And a basketball crazy community with Gonzaga being there.
Sure, yeah.
And it just a small community rallied together, took pride in it, made this their own, and it's their largest fundraiser for the year. They raise millions of dollars, and they've built arenas. They have leagues. They've done just such great social good through this event. So why Spokane? It really is Field of Dreams.
Yeah, like
It's
that's what I'm
Dyersville,
kind of hearing
Iowa.
here. Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. They just did it. And my approach with our partners, and great partners with Due North and the city, province, etc. What we can do it if we make our mind up, we'll do it.
You just got to keep doing it.
We just
That's
gotta
the
do it.
thing. I have that issue with saying this with the NHL is that people go, we got to, the World Cup, we got to let's go to the Olympics. And it's like, you could make the World Cup the greatest hockey event. It doesn't have to be the Olympics.
Yeah.
But you have to keep doing it for every 4 years. You can't do it in 2006 and then 2017 here, and then we're going to do it again in a couple of years. It's got to be consistent.
You got to make a commitment to what your vision is, and then you do it every year, and you try to get better every year.
The vision too.
You have to have a vision.
Yeah. And people will know, a straight on type of.
3-on-3 is so much fun to watch.
It's such a great game. It's such a great.
And in the summer when it's hot out, you're just sitting outside watching people play basketball.
Oh, it's the best. My friends down. I have friends down in the Twin Cities that are old guys like me that still play basketball. And I finally convinced them to play 3x3. I said, there is nothing uglier than watching guys your age running up and down the basketball court. That's hideous. So play 3x3.
Evolve.
Just know your limitations. Just go out to the 3-point line, shoot. Dribble, pass, shoot. Just have fun doing that. And they love it now. They're completely hooked.
Once you get a taste, hey?
Yeah,
and then,
their noon ball now is all 3x3. It's not 5-on-5.
I like that selling. This is hideous watching you boys play this.
Look, boy into the room, puts the tape in the VCR.
This is what you guys look like.
I would back it up a number of decades for other guys that play. Like the more...
Name names, Paul. Come on.
But like, myself included, it's like... To me, 3x3 is an easy sell because why wouldn't you play it? All you do is dribble, pass, and shoot and play a bit of defense on a recreational level, and you don't waste all that time and you're not pounding your knees going up and down the court as opposed to get the ball, move it outside. And if you play 3x3 the way FIBA designs it, you can't... Guys who start playing 3x3 won't get through a 10-minute game.
Right.
That's it. They say, it's only 10 minutes. You got 4 guys. You try to do it at the pace with a 12-second shot clock, you won't get through the game.
There's a pickleballness to this all, is there not? Like it's kind of
easy to pick up.
Easy to pick up, but once you get it and once you know it, you're like, to hell with the rest.
It is. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Once you find religion on it, it's hard to go back the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to go watch. So July 5th through the 7th.
July 5th to the 7th, Fan Park.
Which is right next to Rogers Place.
Right next to Rogers Place.
So 104th and 101st Street.
Yep.
I think that's kind of the address right there.
I await your invite to get me downtown there. And
let's go.
Yeah.
You can park in my place.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
You can come park.
This is your
we'll grab Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, on my way down, I'll grab Tommy and we can head out.
We'll share a scooter.
I went with Hernan a couple years ago.
Yeah.
We sat outside and had a couple of drinks and we watched 3x.
Licensed area. I mean, it's that type of thing. Families, young people want to party a little more. Like that. It's all there. Right?
It'll have a whole festival feel. I mean, we'll have a lot of activities for kids to participate in, inflatables. We'll have a shooting competition court, that sort of thing. We'll have food vendors on site. We'll have music and entertainment going on. We have performances between games in the FIBA facility. This is it's a really fun weekend experience, and it starts Friday night and it'll go all through Friday night, all day Saturday. And Sunday we'll probably get done about 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
And you won't know anybody's here, much like right?
We'll be a finely tuned machine. We'll be a little more sluggish than Spokane.
I like to imagine like the
35 years.
Spokane residents, a couple of them like having to pour it up because hundreds of thousands of people are just descending on the town.
And here, you gotta.
And then Sunday they quietly eat out.
Pretty much, it is the most glorious madhouse of basketball because it's every age group
amazing.
And it's in streets.
I want to check just the way you've set this up. Well, it's just like you're there and then you're gone, but it's
right. Like it happens sometimes in Edmonton. I don't know if we've done it still in a few years, but there've been like street hockey events. Like play on, I think it was. And you do it, and they did it downtown a few years ago. I think right before COVID, and it was in the streets too. And like it's cool to see the street shut down, people playing hockey.
Yeah.
But people playing basketball.
There you go.
Why not? Like
that's exactly right.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And that'd be a lot of fun. Information again for if people want more info just over on the event and on the quest that Eric's gonna look into.
Love it.
DuNorthEvents.ca. Go to the website. You can find out all the information about the tournament. You can register your team online as well. So we'll be very excited to get everybody get their team in, get their kids' teams in. Come on down. Everybody I talked to who was there last year, the whole atmosphere was fantastic. Everybody had a great time, and this year it's going to be bigger and better.
And the tee up for the teams getting ready for the Olympics.
Can't beat
and
that.
they're going to want to be ready. Like the teams that are going, they're going to want to be tuned up, ready to go in good position.
Yeah.
Feeling good about themselves as they
And
head
so
to
we talked
Paris.
earlier. Let's Festival City.
Yes.
If this is an Olympic send off, let's show up.
Yeah.
It's a great
You're
time.
feeling it already. I can tell.
June, July, August. They just mid-August, like right in that time frame. Like you've got 3x3. We've got Taste of Edmonton. We're gonna have K-Days.
I think all my weekends are pretty much all taken care of.
Heritage
pretty much,
Days. I'm just trying to think whatever. Hopefully, Fringe Festival gets going this year.
Oh God, Stingers, Riverhawks, the whole bit. I mean, all that Elks
Riverhawks,
games.
Stingers, Elks just announced. Tommy's going to be on.
What the Oilers are going to do in the draft?
What better topic in August than that?
Tommy's going to.
And then what the Oilers did do in the draft.
Tommy's actually at Commonwealth right now for a press conference. The Elks have announced their 75th anniversary plans. They have a new logo, so their 75th anniversary of the Elks. There's just so much happening.
Big summer,
going on, and in those, and it's nice out. The sun's up till it's
You're not
light out
tensing
till after
yourself to go
11.
outside.
It's beautiful for us. Copa America and
I forget
Euros
about
are going to
that
be
too.
going
Yeah, Euros
on.
too. Holy shit!
Like, I don't know why we're going to be working this summer.
Might have to take it off. Yeah, even though we're
It's going to be a
discussing
big
all of it.
blank
Yeah.
screen when people.
We'll just replay all these shows, but we'll just quickly dub in different days. It's July 9th. Welcome to the EST Hangout.
Well, it's funny because a lot of summers we do talk about the dog days and we're talking Jays and that's it. There's those some days where nothing's happening on the schedule in summertime. There's a couple, but this summer, I mean, you just mentioned.
You guys got to get AI Matt and AI Eric just doing
I
a
think
show.
so. Hey,
I think so.
And they could talk about the draft and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be plugged in first
The
thing.
Oilers made a wonderful
Then the
choice.
rest. Yeah.
That second round pick. Wow, he could be something one day.
What a player. What's his Corsi?
I do want to quickly, because we'll get to the keyword right away here. Canada 2-0 win against Trinidad and Tobago. And Tobago. We beat both of them on Saturday.
Double dick.
We are off to Copa America, which means we'll be taking on Argentina June 20th.
You're physically off to Copa America.
I'm physically off to Atlanta July 19th for the game, the July 20th. We get Peru in Kansas City. We get Chile in Orlando.
Yeah.
That's June 29th. The Peru's the 25th, I think it is. Not the greatest victory. It wasn't the most convincing victory in terms of confidence for Copa America, but we're there, and that's what matters.
It's all we wanted, right? In the end,
Yes.
we wanted to be in this tournament, and they will be there. They'll be there with a manager who, is it a caretaking role right now? We just say
He's interim.
Is he still interim tag on?
Caretaker's only around for like 60 days or something.
Is that
it's very short.
Is that in the contract? Like,
Well, it's generally, in Barcelona, it's actually, I think, written in that your caretaker could only be there for so many days.
Of course it would be there, yeah.
And then it has to be an interim.
So they have an interim manager who, if you wouldn't have gotten into this tournament, you could argue that maybe the business decision would be expedited in terms of his job security and where you'd go. However, they won, they're in. Good. Interim manager. You've got a golden generation, air quotes, of some. Alphonso Davies is going to have a busy summer already in terms of Bayern Munich and Real Madrid.
Moving.
Potentially. So that's going to be on his mind as well. I don't know how that's going to affect everything. But they're in. They beat a nation who, as I said, didn't have team or player names on the back of their kits. I mean, when you're in CONCACAF, there's strange things that happen in CONCACAF. You go to some strange places. Governments get involved sometimes. Like it's all over the map.
It's a mess. It can be.
But they got this team down in Frisco, Texas, in front of, there's a Saskatchewan flag there. I noticed on the broadcast with a few Voyagers traveling. They did it. Trinidad and Tobago had a few good chances early on, a few looks.
They could have been up 1-0 early.
They could have been up 1-0.
Could have been up 2-0 just after half.
But I don't know. They got it. Scheffelberg, the young Canadian Messi.
We're calling him the Canadian Messi.
He got in there and announced himself. So, I mean, look. I think I'm summing this up as they're in the tournament. They're playing Messi, game one. We said it's good to get that game out of the way. How they do,
experience.
This is experience leading up to the World Cup. And
South American soccer is very different
than
what they're used to playing.
Yep.
It's very different from European soccer. It's different from North American
These won't be
soccer.
friendlies.
This won't be friendly. The
tournament
next
play.
5 matches for the men's team, they get a friendly against Netherlands. They get Argentina, Peru, Chile, then Mexico. That stretch, I don't think I've ever seen from Canada soccer of how difficult it could be.
big countries.
We get to see, and it's the preparing of 2026 World Cup, so it's a very big deal. They're there, and quite frankly, in the world rankings, the ELO ranking ones, not the official ones, the ELO rankings. You love all these rankings that have the Ken Palm.
Hello, yeah.
Peru is like 2 spots ahead of Canada. Chile is like 4 spots behind Canada. So they're all comparable.
Yeah.
Canada might get through. We might not, but we get to learn what they're capable of. They need some work to get done to get better for that, but we're there, and that's what matters.
But it's funny, those rankings are also close. You'd argue Chile's just out of their golden generation.
Yeah.
They know more of a downward, whereas Canada, you're expected, but that they're still in the same area. So.
Hernan saying that they got a new manager in Chile, and they're liking this new manager.
Well,
so we'll see. It's
that underdog's punching up mentality.
They didn't
from
look
the
good,
South Americans.
but you're taking on Messi.
It's great.
That's a big deal.
It's a great
That's a big
moment,
deal.
and it will be.
You'll hear more about that in June, right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. I'll talk a lot about that one.
I think so. I think as well you should.
Just thinking, just even Canada-wise, you got the men's at Copa America, and then it's the Olympics. Like with everything that's happening, the women in the waters. We've talked about the track, the basketballs, men's, women's. We'll see about 3x3, women's soccer. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Canadiana we could get behind through the stretch of June through August type thing. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
To your point, it is a magical time in sport for sports fans across the spectrum in Canada.
Yeah. And this summer, too, as we're kind of finding out during the show here. Like, this is, boys, we are here.
It's those even years. They're the best.
Yeah,
they're odd years, or they're the Olympic years and all that happens. Time now for the keyword for the EST flyaway, as we want to send someone to Las Vegas. I just got to make sure there's the keyword. I will get that up right away here. 2 nonstop flights, 3 nights accommodations, tickets to Cirque, presented by FlyYEG and our partners in Vegas, the LVCVA. Nonstop flights to over 50 destinations. Your sports trip starts with a nonstop flight from FlyYEG. Visit flyyeg.com for more information. Speaking of Copa America, I am taking that nonstop flight from the Edmonton International Airport to Atlanta on June 19th.
You need to do a commercial.
Copa America, and I'll film that.
They gotta have you doing it. You queue up there.
The whole walk through the airport.
Yeah.
I'm sure security will love that. I'm gonna film this all. Your keyword to text if you want to get in on the draw today. Text it to 780-218-9999. Mandalay to 780-218-9999. Don't put that in the nasty chat. You got to text us 780-218-9999. Zacticom or Trev, one of the two, will give someone a call in the next 5 minutes. We'll speak to you on the air, and you could be the qualifier for this trip, which will be given away April 26th. The keyword Mandalay, Mandalay, as in Mandalay Bay. One of the great hotels in Las Vegas.
Not to be confused with Vandalay Industries.
No, not Vandalay.
Mandalay.
Have you been to Vegas, Paul?
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah. Not my scene, but I
business or pleasure, or just a mix,
I've done both. Yeah. 2008 went down there for the Canada-U.S. Men's national teams playing each other. There was a great game. Kobe Bryant playing. So Dwight Howard was playing at that time, and they had that generation was out there. But I've been there many, many times. Went down for the basketball tournaments in the summer for youth playing. My sons played down there, so yeah. And I was just there a couple of months ago for just a couple of nights. So
can you believe that NBA will eventually be there?
Oh, yeah.
But it's just like from a few years ago, it didn't seem like, and no one wanted to touch Vegas.
I know, now it's a sports mecca.
And we're be the last caboose kind of going into the, you're going to have the baseball team. That's going to happen it'll be forced, right? Like that's going to, so you got the hockey, and then the NBA
with
coming
LeBron
in.
And
but it's a WNBA town, though.
Yeah, it is. It's a great WNBA town. It's a sports mecca, and just the evolution of the Strip is just incredible. The new dome, I forget what it's called.
The Sphere.
The Sphere, my goodness. Where we were from our hotel, we could look down on it when the show was going on.
Did you get in?
I didn't. No.
Are you a Heights guy?
No, I'm not a Heights guy. But
he struggled in there. Him and Dusty.
Oh, I was like,
they were holding on to the chairs, walking by.
I thought I was going to fall down and then fall forever. Like you kind of look down, and you're like, whoa, there's no ending.
I just laughed at these two. That was great.
No,
they're all lower level, so you could get lower level. But yeah, the Sphere was amazing.
Hell of a visual experience.
Yeah. And it must be unreal.
Audio. They had air coming, you're kind of your seats moving, like the whole
5D or 4D, whatever they call that stuff nowadays.
All your senses are engaged. It was
wow.
Unbelievable. The NBA is going to be something when it gets there. It's just I think after that All-Star game they had, there was it was a lot of issues with that one. And it was like, no one will ever touch Vegas. And yet here we are. We're just waiting down the days until Vegas is announced as that next franchise.
And it should be. To be honest, why wouldn't it be? Why why not just complete the circle of major sports and just live with it?
And even if you're the last one into the station,
if you're the NBA, you're fine.
It doesn't matter.
Summer leagues,
right?
the summer leagues in Vegas.
Summer leagues in Vegas used to be gyms with nobody in it. Now it's a big deal. Yeah. It's so much fun. Summer league's so much fun.
You got the Running Rebels. In town.
Yeah.
You know, it's champs of 90, I think it was.
Yep.
So it's just, it's a basketball city too. The NBA could come in late.
They don't care.
That'll be a basketball city.
Yeah,
they will
they'll be
embrace
fine.
that. WNBA coming to Edmonton.
Yes.
Tickets on sale right now if you'd like to get them. Seattle and LA. I'm so excited that it was LA because Kia Nurse gets to come.
That's right.
It's going to be a good time, I would have to think. And I hope Edmonton comes on and supports it like we did the Raptors preseason game from a couple years ago.
I would be shocked if they didn't. This is a big deal to be the second Canadian city to host a WNBA game after Toronto hosted last year. That speaks volumes to the commitment of OEG and the city of Edmonton to get the WNBA here. It also speaks to the NBA, NBA Canada, and WNBA saying this is a special place to go and play. Our arena's world class. It's as nice as anywhere. But I also think just with we have such a rich, unique history with women's basketball. Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about celebration. I mean, I always, wherever I can, always speak about the grads. 502 and 20 over 25 years.
What's that percentage?
1915 to 1940, when women's basketball was nothing anywhere. And this, again, Field of Dreams. Makes no sense. It's like West Edmonton Mall. Makes no sense, but there it is. But, it just that's Edmonton, and that's what makes it special. So the WNBA coming here, I hope the stadium's just packed. It should be.
I wonder how, this is a big event. You've been around, you study the sport, gazing into a crystal ball, what could this event, I guess, lead to in terms of Edmonton as a whole when it comes to, sky's the limit, you could argue, but coming after a place like Toronto, which we saw in the World Cup inning, there's still your Montreals, your Vancouver. There are other areas in this country. If you're coming here after Toronto, that's a good sign. The Kia Nurse thing doesn't hurt at all. Going back to kind of the hockey tie-in, which it shouldn't. She should stand alone on her own, which she does with basketball fans. But I'm just wondering, because you have that history to touch on, and I think whenever you have a center with history, you don't use it as your be-all, end-all, but you have that history to go back and touch that you could always have a future as long as there's a historical component in there. So I'm just wondering, what would be the future for Edmonton women's basketball? Is there,
at the very least, I hope there's a women's equivalent of the CEBL.
Yeah.
I hope that happens. That's number one. Could we support a WNBA franchise? I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
But the question could be, right?
Could it be asked?
Sure.
Could there be a WNBA G League? And could Edmonton support that?
Yeah.
Could Edmonton support a G League team?
Yeah.
Now that you would get into a whole different set of dynamics with the Stingers. So you don't really necessarily want to go down that road right now.
But with the women's game, and I think just the historical, as you mentioned, you laid it all out. There's always going to be something there to build on if you
Yep.
Right? It's a good foundation of.
Well, it is. And two things that come to mind. For Edmonton specifically, use this as the mustard seed to test the waters on women's basketball. Number two, I think jump on the fact that women's basketball has exploded in popularity this year with the Caitlin Clark phenomenon and just that's happening.
The college numbers and the viewership and just the general interest.
It's off the charts.
Is what on par or even in some talking to people or certain locations higher than the men's tournament, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's bigger stars in the women's.
And nobody bats an eye.
Household names in the women's tournament March Madness this year than there is in the men's.
Yeah, the women, for the first time ever, the women's NCAA, they've used, number one, they get to use March Madness. First time ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's the first time ever they've used March Madness. But secondly, they're the show this year. Caitlin Clark, South Carolina, Juju Watkins from USC. They're the show.
LSU,
and all this. Yeah, with Reese, Angel Reese. So women's basketball has absolutely broken through this year, and I think that's the best way to phrase it.
Yeah.
It's a breakthrough year for women's basketball. And if you haven't watched them play, my goodness. And the thing I like about women's basketball is Caitlin Clark has been the Steph Curry. She's been the fuse to the dynamite, but the dynamite is the overall improvement of the game. And I left out one really important component to women's basketball in Edmonton. We've been the home of the women's national team since 2012.
I mean, we got back to timing. You mentioned it's popping, the history here, the current national. I mean, you throw all that into a pot.
Yep.
Something good has to come out of all that in the end, right? Who knows what it is? Again, we can. But the fact that you're asking, like the questions are there, I think that's a start, right? And that's
100%.
It's got to be something good coming out because the timing is just all too rich.
It is, and really needs to be embraced and exploited and built upon.
Yeah.
It really needs to be built upon. Like what we've done here with the legacy of the grads, with the presence of the women's national team, with the women's 3x3 team being all Alberta, you've got just unique ingredients that really need to be trumpeted and celebrated and built upon. I really believe that.
And at our university level too, I just didn't want to leave them out of this grand conversation we're having. But there's just
Excellent.
The levels are levels, and I just. It's got to come together in some form or fashion, does it not?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I just quickly got to jump in. We've got our qualifier for the EST Flyaway. Zach, who's on the line? Chris is on the line. Congratulations, Chris. You're the qualifier for the trip to Las Vegas. Have you been to Vegas before?
Yes, I have a couple times.
When's the most recent time you went?
Holy smokes, that was 12 years ago.
Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Excellent. Who would you bring with you if you won this trip?
Without a doubt, 100%, my best friend and the most amazing woman I know, my wife.
That's the smart answer right there, Chris. Well, congratulations. Keep your phone on April 26th during the morning show because if you are the winner, the boys are going to call you and you need to pick up to be the winner. Best of luck.
Yeah, you bet. I'll be talking to Eric on that day.
Love the confidence. And there's Chris, our qualifier for the EST Flyway presented by FlyYG and the LVCVA. Your next chance to qualify. Coming up during the Lock Shop with Dusty and Hustler. Paul Sir, Lieutenant Eric, Matt Iwanyk with you here on the EST Hangout. Portions of this hour brought to you by the Hive Product Marketing, official merch partner of Edmonton Sports Talk. Promotional products that bring the buzz. Check them out at the hiveproductmarketing.com. Also, just quickly, personally, just want to wish a happy birthday to my niece, Mila, who's turned 4 today. Ooh. So happy birthday to Mila there, and I have to get her present. I'm working on that. The party's in a couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
It's in a couple weeks. I'm not seeing her today, but happy birthday, Mila.
Can I give a shout out too?
Of course.
I'm going to give a shout out to my almost 91-year-old mother, who still lives on our family farm in Iowa. Watches the Iowa Hawkeyes every game, puts on her Iowa sweater, gets in her chair, watches the Hawkeyes, and just love you, Mom, and just wanted to give a shout out to her because I'm going to send this link to my family that's down staying with her. She's had a lot of health challenges lately, and they'll show it to her.
Hawkeyes, they weren't in the tournament.
They're in NIT.
They're in NIT.
Yeah. They lost last night to Utah.
Oh, okay.
With Edmonton's Ben Cricky on the team.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's just so many Canadians down there. But as you mentioned, on both sides.
Well, absolutely. But and Yvonne Edgem with Gonzaga, honorable mention All-American this year. Mm-hmm. I felt she should have been third team, but she's just out of Calgary and phenomenal season. WCC Player of the Year.
This might be a dumb question. Iowa State hate each other? Is that a real rivalry? Is that a big one?
Oh my God!
Okay, just making sure.
So here's my Iowa hat on. Fewer people in Iowa than in Alberta.
Okay.
They have 8 Division I programs, 4 men's, 4 women's. Of the 8, 5 Iowa State men and women made the NCAA. Drake men and women made the NCAA, and Iowa's women. So 5 out of the 8, and then the Iowa men went NIT. So only University of Northern Iowa didn't make it in. And a lot of the kids that play are Iowans. And the Iowa State women just lost to number 1 seeded Stanford in overtime last night. Great team. Great basketball.
But is there like a state coming together when one of those is alive out of the bunch, and you're like, well, it's bottom of the ninth, we can kind of rally around. We're in the state.
Caitlin Clark is who you guys are going to be fully cheering for.
100%. Yeah.
But on the men's side, Iowa State would your mom jump on board with Iowa State as a number 2 seed, or is that no? They're the rival. They need to be knocked out.
There's a lot of that, and that does in my family. That does happen because I have a niece that goes to the University of Iowa. I have a nephew that ran the track for the University of Iowa. So the Hawkeye roots, and I grew up just a huge Hawkeye fan, but I love the Cyclones. I love the Cyclones. And what they've done there with this team, this next matchup in March Madness, like jumping back to that, Iowa State playing against Illinois. Illinois is tough, but that is going to be a great game. That Washington State-Iowa State game, that was a fun game to watch. They're
like Cougs football wise.
The Cougars. Well, yeah, I mean they're a good team, but Iowa State with a team that doesn't have superstars, they just have a they beat Houston like dogs in that conference final championship. It was like a 30-some point victory. So Iowa State's a very good basketball team. So
is it smart for Caitlin Clark to head to WNBA?
I think so.
Yeah.
Seems it would almost be kind of absurd to have her back next year. Like, yes, she could pile up records that will never be touched, but it's almost a false positive. It's weird, a fifth year given to you because of COVID. I get it, I understand it, but she made a lot of money this year. She'll make a lot more next year. I really, though, the other night, best part of the game. I don't know if you guys saw the game at all, but the best part was her dad telling her to shut up. During the game, she was having she's always been kind of the way she expresses herself, and sometimes she gets a little pouty. But the other day, for whatever reason, she was just having a bad day, and she was very expressive about her displeasure and whining a lot. And at one point, the camera catches her looking at her dad whining, and her dad just goes, "Just shut up," to her. And then afterwards, he cussed. He goes, says it. And then they flash back to him after right after that, she made a boneheaded play, a charge. And they flash back to him and he goes, "Get her out." That's what his response was. So it was like, that was the best part of the game. But here she has an off game, 27, 10, and 9. That's an off night for her.
And she's frustrated.
That
shows how much she's into it. And it's like, for her, she's anger. This isn't good enough for me.
Yeah, no, it's a phenomenon. 35 games, 35 sellouts.
Yeah.
Ratings far greater than the NBA, competitive NBA games.
Here it is. We are here.
They are here. One through the men's tournament. There's this. Who's the ad for? I can't remember. But there's a whole Caitlin Clark commercial.
State Farm.
I've just seen it over and over and over, and it's a great commercial. It gets me fired up and stuff. But it's all Caitlin Clark, and it's because she's this name that we now know.
Yeah. And I think the same you're seeing. I don't need to totally switch lanes here, but the PWHL and some of the names that litter that league as well. And now you've seen the numbers, you've seen the people come out in droves to support in those markets and everything. But if you had those team names too, that you could kind of, and I understand copyright and stuff that they'll have next season, but a hell of a debut from that league as well. And again, with the name recognition that you can have in certain markets certainly goes a long way too.
And the personality though. Sorry, but even just her in that game, you're saying having that personality shine through. Dad telling her quiet, but the personality shine through.
Oh,
Angel Reese had that. Did she wave at Caitlin Clark last year?
More of that.
But we talk about hockey.
She just did that the other day too. She waved at a girl from Middle Tennessee.
And so we talk about hockey. That's not enough personalities.
Yes.
Well, WNBA, you're going to get a lot more personalities coming to your league, and it's going to just make it better.
Well, these are all humans, and it's funny that Dad would know best. You can have as much coaches. He knows. Yeah. But the other night, like in Toronto, Kane and Draisaitl are having it out on the bench, and they're not coming to blows. They're just having a
disagreement.
And everybody else, nothing. It's nothing. It's not nothing. We don't need to blow it up to be it's big something, but yeah. Guys are okay. Well, let's explore this. But what are they arguing about? Like, why does it need to be so
sanitized?
Don't talk about that at all because it could be something weird or it could be something we don't even know about. No, I want all of that. I don't need to go behind your life and the scenes and how you go through a day and that's fine. But during the game, stuff's happening. Yeah, that's the good stuff.
That's the human part of it.
Yeah.
When I look at Caitlin Clark, I marvel all the pressure she's been under the last few years, culminating with this year, with every record having a huge spotlight, every arena sold out. And what two things can't be lost. Number one, what she's done, not just in terms of statistics, is incredible, but the way she's done it, the way she's changed the women's game, like Steph Curry changed the men's game in terms of what's an acceptable shot. Caitlin Clark has done that now for the women. Nobody ever would have thought that would happen. And to have one individual sell out every arena and to have it be a special experience and deliver. Deliver.
Nobody signs up to be an ambassador. Like in the game of life, you don't this is going to be my moment. It happens. You're there. Timing,
you really
right?
are an old soul, you know.
Well, but how old is she?
22.
Doing all that. I could never do that. Could you imagine the responsibility heaped on you? Not necessarily people telling you have to go out and do it, but she knows this is a big thing. I'm sure, even at 22. But to then again go out there and just perform.
For this whole year, the pressure is on her.
Right, and she knows it's not a
secret. She came on a household name last year throughout the tournaments. Yeah. So this year, everyone's following Caitlin Clark.
Yep.
And she rose. She matched the challenge. She beats the record with an unbelievable 3.
From the logo,
right?
I know. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
You can't make it up. How she did it, the way she did it, game after game, lead the nation in scoring and assists. She's really special. You know who she reminds me of, though? People use the comparison of Steph Curry, and there's certainly a valid comparison there. To me, she's Pete Maravich for a lot of reasons, and for people who aren't familiar with Maravich, he's such an icon, and not enough is known about him and how he revolutionized and changed basketball single-handedly. Slight frame, and here's the other, and this is where next year is going to be interesting. Like Maravich, when Maravich went to the NBA, he was a mark. Everybody was trying to get him. And he eventually had a great all-star career, Hall of Fame, NBA career. But his first year or two were tough. Caitlin next year in the WNBA, she's going to be the same. Everybody's going to be looking for the opportunity to go at and to D down on and to go against Caitlin Clark.
This isn't NCAA anymore. Welcome to the WNBA.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who we've been here for a while.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
And just like the NBA, the women that play are bigger, stronger, faster, better. I still think she's going to be great.
Well, if you've gotten to this point, doing all of this and having all of this on you, and then still succeeding, and
she'll be just fine.
But a fascinating watch again, because this is your next challenging chapter. Can you do it? Will you do it?
And coming up along with it, my last comment on women's basketball has been the improvement in parity, where the women's NCAA used to be the haves and the have-nots. Yeah.
It was you. That was it.
Yeah.
When was the last time UConn won?
Yeah, they're part of the pack now.
Yeah.
Before that, it was Tennessee. They're part of the pack.
Yeah.
Once you lose that edge and parity starts becoming more and more of an issue, then it makes it for a really fascinating watch.
You could actually fill out a bracket, and it's not just put UConn far and like a couple teams. You actually have to think about it and get Ken Palm going.
You got to put up Ken Palm,
to get that full thing. Again, WNBA coming though to Edmonton. Sparks with Kia Nurse taking on Seattle. Ticketmaster, you can get tickets right now. I know Explore Edmonton was working hard at bringing that one in as well. Okay,
Explore Edmonton did a great job.
Want to get into this conversation that we had off air before we came to the Hangout. You weren't part of this, so you could come into it now.
Okay,
but we're focused on March Madness down south. We've got the brackets. They're printed off. Yours is over there. There's the women's brackets too. Could we do a March Madness style youth sport for basketball?
Well, I was thinking,
should we be looking at finding a way to get this done where we've got a bracket with our universities and just fill it out? And you don't have to know anything. No. Most of us that fill out brackets don't know anything, but we're going to go Alberta, and we're going to mark them down.
I think the Ravens, or whatever you do. Somebody, and it's funny you say this because I saw, I can't remember who it was, probably on Twitter, but somebody saying, a CHL path to the Memorial Cup, and of course we go back to hockey.
That's been thrown out with hockey.
But it's one of those. It's a tournament and something where you have a boatload of teams, nationwide thing. Why not? Have a it doesn't take much to build a bracket. And again, you don't have to know everything. I think the best part of these brackets and everything is it takes a casual and it brings them into the conversation. Now I know a little bit more. Now I've been forced to.
You're better than me in the bracket. I was reading Ken Palm. You just
Palm's
filled
got
it out.
Nothing on me, but I know who Ken Palm is now. So without doing the bracket, I mean, is my interest going to be as peaked in the tournament? I'm going to safely say probably not. But you give me a bracket, well, it's opened my eyes, and now I have to work a bit. Or I pay $20 to the guy, so I'll take more of an interested. I say do it for basketball. Hell, do it for, I think the CHL would be great, a path to Memorial Cup. That's a long tournament, right, as it is. Why not? You give it to me, and I'll fill it out.
Well, for me, to me, you just should do it. Like I think university sports and college sports in Canada are terribly underserved and undermarketed and underappreciated.
And take up a different name almost every 2 years. We talk about consistency and stuff and building a brand.
You mean the CIAU?
CIAU, yeah, I'm a CIS, whatever.
CIS
But you don't even know what you're calling it anymore because it's a bit of a...
But yeah, the brands are different, and every year the format's different.
Exactly.
This year it's this year it's not. To me, it should be, just as an example, 16 university teams and 16 college teams, CCAA, and maybe 32. Maybe you do 32. But whatever it is, why wouldn't you do something like that, either as a regional or bring them in for? I played in the NAIA when I was at Winona State, and back in the day, like the year that I was there, it was in Kansas City. 32 teams came in, and it was a really good tournament. We had ML Carr from the Celtics, World Be Free was there. Jack Sikma was there. Like, we had NBA players in amongst this. That was a different era for basketball altogether. But 32 teams, and you played there, and you played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and so I forget what the math was. It was 3 or 4 games, but whatever it was, why not do that for Canada and make it a big showcase and make it something really special for the university students? Because what bothers me is, like, youth sports, it's hardly broadcast, and you hardly get any attention paid to it. We had the national championships here, and the University of Alberta did a great job. Lots of support from the community. Attendance, if it wasn't Alberta, wasn't very good. But hey, that's the deal. That happens down in the States with March Madness too. You can still
throw on these games this past weekend. There's a couple games you throw on, and there's not a lot of people.
Not a lot of people there. Like, so, and the idea that all university gyms are just packed down in the States is just a misnomer. That doesn't happen. But to me, do it for the athletes.
Yeah.
Make it special, and do it for the fans, and do it for, just say, this is what we're going to do now, and let it build over a few years and build the excitement, because now you start watching these guys play. Maybe it'll then end up into a youth sports game of the week, or people will start watching it more, and then you start seeing some special players, and maybe one day you get a youth sports player that does go to the NBA. Mm-hmm. So those things can happen, but I really think it's not doing the game and the players justice.
Travel costs, I think, might be one of the biggest concerns. But, like, if you're starting this, you hopefully can grow it into something. But let's say you start with 16. It's 2 weekends. You do Thursday, Friday, Sweet 16. You break it up into a couple locations like they do down south. Yeah. 2 locations, maybe 3
locations. I think by province you could have 2 cities. Let's just say.
But if you're mixing the brackets up and you're doing things differently.
Sure.
You've got Sweet 16 Thursday, Friday, Elite 8, Saturday, Sunday. The following weekends, you could do the Final Four on the Friday and the championship on the Sunday.
Brought to you by U-Haul. We take your athletes across the country or something like that. It pays for the travel. I mean, because you're right. Travel is one thing,
brackets,
but yeah.
Like, and now it's like we're all talking about filling out our March Madness brackets for a country that's not ours. Now, yes, a lot of great Canadians are going there and developing, and that's important. It's great that we have the Canadians go down there, and that helps grow them. But yeah, how long does it take to fill out a bracket? Not that long if you really care.
But I've learned a lot more about Carleton if I'm filling out a bracket. That's just
I'm not putting Carleton in the final for the first few years easily.
Sure.
But I'm hoping, like, I'm picking Alberta a little bit. I want Alberta to go. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't know, is UBC going to beat Saskatchewan this year? Or it's like comparing, all of a sudden I've got Calgary taking on Laval. How do I compare? Okay, but you fill that out. And now I got interest because I got a bracket. I don't care about Oakland and Kentucky. Yeah. I don't actually like Kentucky. I'm not a John Calipari guy type thing. But I was invested in that game.
I thought they're from California.
Oakland?
Of course.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. And
you don't know.
You're all in.
Oh, yeah. Now I know.
I'm watching a game, and I'm watching Kansas take on... Who's going to knock off Kansas almost? I forget. But there's that block, and I'm all invested in this block. It has nothing to do with any of it. I don't care about any of these teams. I'm, again, Duke guy. And it's one where, okay, give me a 16-team bracket of U Sports, and then of I was just called DCC. CCAA. And now I'm caring about Nate because we're from Nate.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to follow this, and I'll follow along because I'm following my bracket.
And then 8 players will be a bunch of giants from the CIS or U Sport or whatever, and they're going to have that
that one shining moment.
Emotion of the tournament will
It'll raise.
The rec laws could build us the one shining moment. We can get them to create the
They'll
song.
be a part of it. Sure. We'll have the NW the whole bit. It'll be a Canadiana fest. We can have it all. Yeah. But bracket, much to the Nielsen Show drafts, you can bracket anything. You can draft anything. Like
You guys did a bracket of Apollo Creed Memorial Tournaments. You've done the Summer of George.
Brackets are just fun.
They're easy to do.
And you could take the most mundane. I'm not saying basketball's mundane, but you could.
We can do a bracket of the best White Claws drinks, and everyone will fill it out.
Everybody will fill out a bracket.
100%.
And it doesn't cost so. Get together, do this again. The travel. That's maybe one thing you got to figure out. But
But
come on,
come on.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about really small.
It's 2024.
It's 2024. You mean you can't fly a team to a location for a weekend?
Yeah.
You
Get
can't
WestJet
find
as
a
a
way.
sponsor.
Yeah.
They could fly everyone.
Or maybe the bigger schools pony up for the time. You cover it all, and then
Get
down the
Best
line.
Western as a sponsor. Best Western is going to house all the teams in various cities across the country.
But you can't. There's a way if there's a will.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you then blend the men's and the women's championships together? The Final Four for both in the same city. You know,
Two
run
games.
your
I
games.
immediately go
and
to
then,
why isn't there a will? Because that's clearly there isn't one.
there isn't.
It's
I have opinions, but I don't know. But I just know.
I feel like it's never
been.
the top leadership wise of U Sport. Like it.
you're in a cruise control of it, and you're just
it feels like often it is.
Pay the bills, yeah,
What's
okay, we're
next?
good.
Change the name, right? Like
Yeah.
there is a reason for that.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Is that I don't know if there's that vision at the very top to be like, let's do this right.
And the same goes in with our CFL fantasy. And I mean, this seems like such an easy thing to kind of do.
Yes.
And how fun it would be to have a season-long fantasy league instituted by the league. We do it on our own.
For the
we have
football
great
league,
fun.
yeah.
We've been the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, and we're flourishing. We got a nest. We got eggs. Like the canary's fine.
We've helped create another league.
So I just wish. Look,
Dusty's not here, so it's perfect.
impersonation or whatever, it's a sign of success, right? But these things seem so easy on the offset. Again, I'm not behind it, but you got to be able to make it work. Knowing what could come from it. You've seen it. We see the Women's March Madness now that it's called. You see all this.
Yes.
Just do it, and you will get there.
It really is. If you build it, they will come.
Thank you.
And it will not be March Madness, but it can be a version of it, and it can be a successful version of it. And if you don't commit to it, it will never be anything more than what it is now. And this is in no way a derogatory comment to the coaches, athletes, programs, nothing like that. But you need a system that says this has value, and a nation that says this matters. And let's take pride in this, like we were talking about the CFL and about, this league is retooling to be relevant now, and it out of necessity. Why not do that? Why not take the same approach and say, what if we did this? What if it really worked? We had this idea. We were thinking big at Basketball Alberta. In 2014, normally when we have provincial teams for the different provinces, the boys and the girls play in different cities. So I put forward a presentation on behalf of Basketball Alberta to do U15, U16, and U17 championships all at the Saville Center. So we had boys and girls all come here, and we sent invitations out to NCAA coaches, and we had over 100 NCAA coaches come to watch players play. It only went 1 year because they went back to, we want to split this up and make sure everybody gets a taste. It was a great event, and you took that. To me, they took that away from the kids, but they just want to spread it out.
Yeah.
And so for the U Sports kids, CCAA kids, make it a big deal because it's their career, it's their window, and when life goes on, that goes in the rearview mirror really quickly. So they should deserve to be
Well,
celebrated.
and I think of national broadcasters too, and just sort of quickly, if you had a tournament like that, I mean, imagine how you market that on TV and how more you could. The Vanier Cup over the years, they've done things with that where they move the game around or whatever. I mean, TSN used to have the Hardy Cup. All those used to be like cornerstone viewings.
I remember Tim McAuliffe doing on Sportsnet and the score or whatever it was for years.
Even the hockey national championships. I mean, if we are such a hockey nation, we're talking basketball, we're talking football. That's fine, whatever. Those are American. If the hockey national championships in college.
It was on Sportsnet just a few years ago. Now it's only on CBC Gem.
And I know we care about the Golden Bears here, and rightfully so, with the history and everything that they've built. But again, that weekend, much like the States in their college, that should be like a most national.
Frozen Four.
Why not? Yeah. But it's just like, we got this thing on. Yeah, they've been playing all year. Now we're gonna award a champion. Really? That's it?
That's kind of the tone. I agree with the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
you start with one sport. Go with basketball or something.
Yes.
And like Raimai, he tweeted out he wanted a volleyball one, which I love watching volleyball. I would
give
love
it to
that.
me. Give me a bracket. I'll fill it.
It would be amazing. But like if you're TSN, or go with like a 5-year plan or something. And if you're like TSN or something, where like if you do this before March Madness, the US one. Well, it's your lead up to March Madness. Hey, March Madness is coming up in a few weeks, but before that, we've got the Canadian version.
Yeah, Canadian slightly annoyed tournament. Is this?
We're sorry, but we're a little annoyed.
Not mad, but just. But you're right.
But I'm really sorry.
That's a great, and then get you a taste. And
it's the same way we argue with the college, like promote. They don't do a good enough job of promoting their college football bowl games with the. These players are on negotiation lists of these CFL teams.
Sure.
Watch the start.
There's a connection
before
here.
And stuff. Hey, the Elks have this player. He's on the neg list. He's getting set to take on this team. Watch it on TSN 4 tonight at 5:30.
The average man and woman in the street don't know that, and the connections aren't made.
Got to make it for them.
Man,
but like us being able to fill out a Canadian bracket would be fun. Even if it's the CHL,
whatever.
Cool, okay,
whatever.
We can fill out a bracket and like hockey bracket. The NHL playoffs, the Magic's never going to be like this.
No.
Like even to your point where this is like the ceiling of these, or like they go off to their next thing, rearview mirror. It's the same with a lot of the schools in March Madness that we've talked about. Those players from Oakland, they're not going to the NBA.
This is there,
But they're going to look 20 years from now and be like, we took down Kentucky. This was our moment. We were on the stage, and the CEOs of Yale could talk about how
State Farm wants to do a commercial with me, or whatever.
With all of Kia Nurse's accolades and success, she was on the other day and doing her analysis with Jack Armstrong.
She's brilliant.
She is great. And she was saying she wanted to go to a school where she would have a chance to play in March Madness so she could tell her grandkids. That's what, I mean, my son Steve at Northern Arizona, 2 times Big Sky Championship game, lost both times, didn't get to March Madness. Lost both games, but that was the dream. That was what you hope will happen. And I think that's what you see these 68 teams that get there. It's so cool that they are celebrated in the way that they are and that they get that shining moment. And we should give the same experience. And it doesn't have to be the elephant. It can be a really nice event without being the elephant, but at least have the spotlight on the darn thing.
Well, and as you say, this is for the student athletes. These are the stories that again, you're at NATE or SATE or whatever you get in this tournament or whatever, or even at one of the big schools and you go on and win that could be.
And wait till you have the one upset.
Yeah,
I know Carleton wasn't as good this year, but
whatever.
Carleton's back to being Carleton, and all of a sudden they get upset by Lethbridge or where. Like,
and if you're watching that on a national broadcast,
what just happened?
Part of a tournament, fell? But you'll remember that too as a viewer. Like, I mean, those are moments that stick out.
Well, you've got in Carleton. That's a great example. I mean, what Dave Smart did at Carleton, it's unbelievable. Dave Smart was as good a coach as anyone either side of the border, and he had numbers of opportunities to go south, but he has stayed in Canada. But the Carleton dynasty is just what they've accomplished is unbelievable. So I think that should have always been celebrated. More people need to be more aware of that, and that should be elevated. I mean, they beat mid-major Division I teams regularly when they play in the summer. Not that they'd go down and be.
But it shouldn't just be a story on that city's newspaper. That should be you mentioned.
Yeah,
that should be
big time.
Come on,
that's big time. So let's do it.
And I've thrown out with the volleyball.
Volleyball's phenomenal.
Well, they'd be often in the years past. Southern schools would come up and take on a bunch of the Canadian schools, and we
Get
beat
worked.
them. We beat them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of stopped now, and they've grown with their level. But we were as good, if not better, in some sports than what they have in the NCAA. Yeah, our U Sports football teams aren't going to go beat their football teams. Our basketball top end teams aren't going to go beat on their best teams. But in the other sports, we can be very competitive with them.
I have to tell you, and this is therapy for me. The most depressing place in the world to go for a basketball coach is a volleyball practice. Because you walk in and you see all these guys 6'7" to 6'10" who can jump out of the gym. And you go, what in the heck? How did we miss this? Volleyball in Alberta, I can only speak to that, is phenomenal. They've got great quality, and they've produced high level players and teams. The Panda volleyball program is legendary. Same with the Golden Bears. Like, they are just incredible programs. And that is a great sport and very watchable sport.
It's so much fun to watch.
And I think one that
Easy
a
to
lot of
consume.
people during their life, just going to school, it's one of those sports
played
that's
it.
offered. You don't need
It's
to
in
pay
gym. It's in
thousands
gym
of
and
dollars
stuff.
and blah, 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 go to an academy, but you can just, it's for everybody.
Yep.
It'd just be so much fun to have a March Madness style bracket for
A ball and
our
a net,
stuff. Like,
hey?
the women's
Volleyball,
national
basketball,
championship
soccer.
came here. Like, imagine if it was a little bit bigger, and then we actually filled out a bracket. Maybe there's interest now. I'm going to go watch because I've got my bracket going, and we're going to get invested really because of my damn bracket.
What's changed the NFL viewership?
Gambling.
Yeah. And I mean, what's changed the viewership for March Madness? It's brackets and bracketology. We're not talking about splitting the atom here. We're not reinventing the wheel. Do a damn bracket. Run them. Let's.
It's funny how it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Like, you ever see, like, it's a bracket, and people will
Print
get
it out,
invested.
get the paper, get a printer, and they should be dropping them from a plane, to the cities. Here, you fill them out.
Let's celebrate it. Let's celebrate and have some fun with it and get it on TV. It just kills me. And I mean, I don't know the economics, and I'm sure if the economics made sense, all 5 Sportsnet and all 5 TSN channels would have stuff on, but they've got the vehicles there. Show March Madness.
But if you keep them in the garage,
Madness.
they won't get wrecked.
That's pretty much it.
Well, that's
yes.
Yeah,
It is. There's a tinge of frustration, though, right?
There
Because
is.
you're just
Well,
it's all here. You set up the table, and you're like, well, why not?
It can be done. And like CBC, I'm glad CBC got a deal done late with a little bit of U Sport to start broadcasting more of the regular season on their YouTube channels.
And they were getting
their
Vanier
CBC
Cup, were
channel.
they not?
They air Vanier Cup on
That's what happened.
TV,
But yeah.
Which is awesome.
but they don't you could watch most of what they ran in the second half of the season was just online, which now a lot of things are very easily
Yeah, that's how
watchable online. But it's like, even we need more of that. We need it more accessible. And there's Canada West TV that you can pay for. But the thing is, how many people actually just want to go pay for Canada West TV? People don't pay for one soccer to watch Canada soccer at the highest level.
You need to have it, yeah.
So it needs to be, and this is where our broadcasters, but we
CBC
have
Sports-
the ability to take the easy way out because we could just run American programming for most of the day and then produce the bare minimum. Where it's like, well, imagine if we had, like we've talked, how great would it be to have a CFL show on TSN once a week? That is just a recap.
Give me a half hour.
How
I'll
great
take
would it
50
be?
minutes.
Why can't we have an hour U Sport recap weekly show where we're going around the country going, this is what's happening in men's basketball this week. This is what happened in women's basketball, volleyball, hockey, football. Here's what's happening.
CBC Sports Saturday for all of they're always in the Alpine, Switzerland here, and that's great. I mean, and there are athletes representing Canada there and those, but yes. Every second, why couldn't you go to the hey, we're doing this. We're going to go watch volleyball, basketball at this camp this weekend. Right? That's your CBC Sports Saturday. We're here. We got some people here. Bring the family out or whatever.
Yep.
Does it always have to be in Switzerland on an alpine track? Like, again, nothing against those athletes, but have a bit of a mix.
Be nice.
CBC Sports Saturday, not the ski Saturday.
Absolutely.
2 hours has flown by.
This was fun.
This
Yeah,
was a great
my
conversation. Paul, it was great having you in.
Great being here, guys.
Great
Thank you
seeing
so
you,
much.
man.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
3x3 again, July 5th through the 7th. It's the final tune-up for those teams going on, but it's all part of to the Olympics. Hoop Fest, the Quest is coming on.
Yep.
Once again, if people want more information on 3x3, and we'll talk about it more as we get closer to day 2 here on EST.
DueNorth.ca. Go there. You can register. We'll have all the information about buying tickets to attend the event, to have your team be part of the event. So look forward to people joining us. I know they're going to have a great time. Thanks, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Paul.
Good luck to your bracket. Good luck to your bracket as well.
What is?
And,
Don't need luck.
I don't even know if I qualify as having a bracket right now.
well, you've got UConn. I'm a sense. You said they're winning
UConn,
it for
they're
you,
winning
so
it,
there
so-
you go.
NC State, baby.
NC State.
They're in my Final Four. UConn, NC
okay, not
State,
NC
Arizona,
State
Purdue.
winning it.
No.
Okay, as in NC State winning. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a nice risk. I've got Duke UNC in the final. Imagine that.
Hey, now.
Yep.
I'm here for it.
ACC dream.
It'd be amazing. He is Paul Sir, Lieutenant Eric. I'm Matt Iwanyk. Thanks for tuning in to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw. Up next, it is the Lock Shop. Dusty and Huss, then Oil Stream at noon. Rough weekend for the Edmonton Oilers. Dusty and Tommy will recap that. They're live at Boston Pizza in Beaumont. Tommy will also have maybe a little bit of info on the Edmonton Elks 75th season celebrations that they had that press conference today during the show here. And that's why Tommy wasn't here. He'll talk a little bit about the 75th anniversary. That's coming up here on Edmonton Sports Talk, on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tune in, iHeartRadio, as well as on YouTube. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Hangout. Lock Shop starting in just a few minutes.
Look at this. Let's go.
There you go, right in front of the camera.
First-time guest, long-time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Zola with here. Joining us today,